Newcastle United have made a €75 million bid for Frankfurt's Hugo Ekitike, and I like it. This is juicy. This is what I've been waiting for from Newcastle. They got Elanga done, brilliant. First domino has fallen, move on to the next one. Continue to show ambition, continue to be aggressive in the transfer market, and that's what this is. This would be a statement signing, something Newcastle are not afraid to do. They signed Tonali, they signed Isak. They're happy to spend big money on big players as long as A, they fit with what they want to do as a football club and as a team on the pitch, but also B, they're the right character, and C, they think it's good value for money. Newcastle will not pay more than what they think that player is worth. They are reluctant to get into paying Saudi tax. So if they've bid €75 million for Ekitike, it's because they believe Ekitike is worth €75 million. This would be ambition from Newcastle. They had a fantastic season last season, winning the Carabao Cup, qualifying for Champions League football. They're in a really good place right now, but they have to keep going. They have to keep improving. They have to keep building. Because if they could replicate that next season, that would be a fantastic season. They could win a trophy and qualify for Champions League football again. That would be huge. I think their ambition should be to challenge for trophies and get Champions League football again, and also perform well in the Champions League. What that means, I don't know. It depends on the luck of the draw, etc. But they're in a really good place to have a really good season. They just need to add to what they've already got. Ekitike does that. But what does that mean for Alexander Isak? Because it's impossible to not look at this transfer and think about that. I'm looking forward to discussing it with you. But if you're new to the Tartan YouTube channel, please do subscribe. And if you're watching this on the telly, if you wouldn't mind getting your phone out and subscribing, because it's a bit fiddly to do on the TV, but I would appreciate it a lot. And also drop a like on the video as well by clicking that thumbs up button. Both things are free. Takes 2 seconds. Helps out the video. Helps out a small channel. Makes me a little bit happier than I was before you did those things. But thank you for all the support recently. Been fantastic, and looking forward to catching up with you in the comments below. But before I see what you say, I'm going to tell you what I think. Ekitike, when he rocked up at Frankfurt initially on loan, I thought he looked like what I thought he was, which was a young lad with lots of potential, and he needed a bit of time. But he settled into the Bundesliga pretty quickly. I think he settled into Frankfurt fairly quickly as well. And the longer he stayed there, the better he got. I think there was an element of settling into the team in the league, but also just experience. He's only just turned 23. He was 22 when the season finished. It was only a handful of weeks ago that it was his 23rd birthday. This is a really young player, and I think sometimes it's easy to forget that because he's been around for such a long time. Newcastle tried to sign him in January 2022, so 3.5 years ago Newcastle initially tried to sign him. Then in summer 22 it got even closer, and then he rejected the move so he could go to PSG. But he's been on Newcastle's radar for over 3 years. So I think it's easy to forget that he's literally just turned 23, because it feels like he's been around for ages. Hopefully that makes sense. But last season, 15 goals, 22 goals, 12 assists. Superb return for the 22-year-old. I really like him. I don't think he's the finished article yet. I don't think they are buying the perfect striker. I think they're buying someone that could become the perfect striker, because the player that rocked up at Frankfurt was a young lad who had loads of potential. The player that Newcastle are trying to buy now, I think, is a top player who still has plenty potential to get even better. And I feel quite confident he will improve and he will get even better. And I feel even more confident that if he went to Newcastle, that would really benefit that next stage of his career, that next stage of his development. And in terms of what he is as a player, he's tall, but not necessarily not a target man, though. I wouldn't be launching the ball at him. Although he is tall, he is strong, he's very quick, doesn't mind dropping deep and getting involved in the play, good at pressing from the front, not someone that I would consider to be strong in the air personally. I think he's better at running the channels as a striker, one-on-one against defenders as well. I like this player a lot, and I like this transfer a lot. But immediately you think, well, what does that mean? Does that mean Newcastle United are going to be selling Alexander Isak, who has been linked to Liverpool for quite some time? Now, we know Liverpool are going to be after number 9. Nunez is expected to leave at some point this summer because of the tragedy that happened at Liverpool with Jota. They're going to need to bring in someone. Is it Isak? I can't see it. I think Newcastle's ambition here is to sign Ekitike, and they'll have him and Isak next season. And I think Isak will leave eventually. My prediction is Isak moves next summer. I think maybe that's when Newcastle decide to cash in, and that gives them a year. That gives them a year to get Ekitike up to it, but also Osula gives him a year of getting even more experience under his belt, so he's ready to then play a more significant part in Newcastle season, the season after next. In 12 months' time, the aim would be that Osula is ready to step up a gear and take on a more important role in Newcastle squad. I think he's got the potential. I like what I see from that lad. I'm really looking forward to seeing him this season at Newcastle. But the reality is, next season, Newcastle have a lot of games. The expectation is that they will compete in the Carabao Cup. They'll compete in the FA Cup. They've obviously got the league, and then the Champions League, which has been extended since they were last in it. There's an extra couple of group stage games now compared to when they were competing in it previously. There's a lot of football next season. Over 60 games Newcastle will play. Isak, he hasn't missed much, right? He's missed 4 league games last season. I think he played 30 the season before that, so he doesn't miss loads. However, I feel like he does pick up a few niggly injuries, and often it's during games, so he plays, but he's not quite 100%, or he has to come off because he's picked up a niggle or whatever, and he's okay for the next game. But I do feel like Isak does get a few little small issues. And I think last season, one of Newcastle's biggest downfalls was Callum Wilson, especially at the very end of the season when I think they played Arsenal and Isak was unavailable. Wilson just looked shot. Honestly, he didn't. There was just nothing from him. The drop-off from Isak to Wilson was incredible. So you take the left wing position, for example, Gordon to Barnes, arguably improved. But my point is, the calibre of player is quite similar. There's not that much between them. I think in midfield they've got that issue when one of them's out. Tonali, Bruno, Joelinton is fantastic. But you take one out, I think there's a bit of a drop-off to Willock, or it was Longstaff. I think Lewis Miley will eventually get better, but there's still that little bit of a drop-off. But at full-back, they're okay. Take out Livramento, Trippier goes in, it's fine. Trippier and Livramento can also both cover on the left when Hall's out. Byrne can move out there. They're strong in depth at full-back. Left wing, right wing with Elanga now. Murphy there. They can use Gordon or Barnes if they have to. That striker position just needed strengthened. I feel quite confident that Isak and Ekitike will both be at Newcastle next season. And I think there's enough game time for them to play. Either, one starts in Champions League, the next one starts in the league, but also coming off the bench. And at times you will see both of them play up front. Now, I've seen a lot of suggestions that it might mean that Howe goes 4-4-2. I can't see it. Some games, certainly. In games, definitely. If they're chasing the game, they need a goal. But have 2 up front, because we've seen that from Eddie Howe. And that Bournemouth 4-4-2 was a formation he played at times. But I think one of Newcastle's strengths is that midfield of Tonali, Bruno and Joelinton. And I just don't think you break that up. However, those 4 wingers that they've got now, if you are going to go 4-4-2 hypothetically, I think those wide players are perfect for playing that formation, because they need to be hard working, but they also need to be defensively solid as well. You wouldn't want to play Mo Salah on the right of a midfield 4, put it like that, would you? I think the profiles that Newcastle have got with Elanga, Barnes, Gordon and Murphy, you could go play 4-4-2 if you like. I just think you'd be removing what I consider to be Newcastle's strength. Like I said, certainly they're a goal down, or if they're playing, I don't know, Burnley at home, who you'd expect maybe to sit back next season, be quite pragmatic under Parker, then start the game with 4-4-2. I'm not saying they'll never do it. I just imagine it won't be very often that they would start Isak and Ekitike. Perhaps Howe might look at moving one of them out wide if he has to. They've both got the ability to do it. Isak's played out on the left plenty of times, and if Wilson was ever on, Isak tended to be the one that had to move to the side a little bit and do that running. But I think you're just going to have Newcastle having 2 top strikers. And if this was, say, Arsenal or Liverpool or Manchester City, and those clubs had two top strikers, you wouldn't read anything into it. Chelsea at the minute have got Pedro, Delap and Jackson, but you think, well, it's Chelsea though. They're a big club. They have to have that many players. That's strength and depth. It's not unusual. It's fine. But Newcastle are now one of the best teams and best clubs in the English Premier League. Newcastle now need to have two top players in every single position. Do they have that currently? No. If you add Ekitike, they will. But I just think, I feel quite confident that the next year will be Ekitike getting used to Eddie Howe, Howe getting used to Ekitike, and the ambition might be to keep Isak and then next summer sell him. And part of the reason I don't think he'll go now is because of his price tag. Newcastle can and should and probably will demand 150 million. I think he's possibly the best striker in the world. Shoot me if you want, but I honestly think that. I think that guy is incredible. He's such a good player, such a good striker. Newcastle are well within their right to demand whatever they want for him. Doesn't mean they'll get it. Just because he's worth 150 million to Newcastle doesn't mean he's worth 150 million to Liverpool. But given that they've already signed Wirtz and have spent quite big money on the squad in total, I can't really see Liverpool sanctioning a transfer like that for Isak this summer. But I guess the problem here is, well, what happens if Liverpool do go get another number 9 in, so that next summer they won't need Isak? I just feel like Liverpool's his likely destination because there's not much clubs right now you can leave Newcastle for and improve. I think Liverpool currently are. I think it'll be hard for Newcastle to match Liverpool because of the history. But there's not that many clubs Isak will leave Newcastle for. And I think they're in a good position, Newcastle, which is if you want him, he's 150 million. If you don't want him, we'll keep him. We're all right. Maybe next summer they'll have that issue and they'll have to consider selling him. But what about next summer? What happens? You've got a year. What Newcastle do if they can keep Isak and buy Ekitike? They buy themselves one season to show Isak why he should stay. And that is the challenge for the Premier League title. Because I don't think they're a million miles off it. I don't think they're that far away. The squad isn't complete. They still need to go get a centre-back. And I think they need to go get a goalkeeper. But I also feel quite confident that that's next for Newcastle. I don't think they sign Ekitike and stop. I think they keep going. I think they go get that centre-back. I think they go get, or try and go get James Trafford and finally get that deal done. But I don't think Newcastle are a million miles away from challenging for the title next season. I think Newcastle's possible issue is that they're almost too ambitious in all competitions. When it comes to the Carabao Cup, in the earlier rounds, they'll rotate the squad heavily, but they'll try and win it. They won't just chuck it away, a bit like what other clubs perhaps do. You get the sense that other clubs perhaps don't really care about the Carabao Cup too much. I think Newcastle will. That's their trophy to retain. The FA Cup will be the same again. Let's take this serious. Let's try and win it. Because they're desperate for success. They've got it now. They've had it now. Newcastle are a big club in a really good position. Ekitike, I think, is a bit of a project. Not a complete project, right? You're not bringing in someone that's no one's heard of and there's a lot of work to be done here. You're not. You're getting in a guy that can contribute tomorrow. But it gives him a year to just mould him to the way that Howe and Newcastle want him. And I think they're buying a top striker. And if they can keep Isak, they're keeping a world-class striker. And could you imagine next season there's a game where Newcastle play Ekitike and Isak up front? That duo could be fantastic. The one thing I will say about Ekitike is it completely fits the way Newcastle play today. Completely. Last season, Frankfurt were the best counter-attacking team in the Bundesliga. Marmoush scored the most goals on the break. Ekitike was second. They enjoyed playing counter-attacking football, Frankfurt did. So Ekitike is coming out of Frankfurt, going to Newcastle, and the style of play will suit him perfectly. He will have to adapt to the Premier League, but I think tactically, I think he's potentially joining a good club. What will be interesting here is if Liverpool get involved, because we know they want a striker. Newcastle have gone in. We know that Frankfurt rejected a bid from 8 other Premier League clubs. Now, it was believed that was Chelsea, but they bid 70 million euros and had a bid rejected. They've not been named. It's rumoured it was Chelsea. It could have been Man U. But I do wonder if this makes Liverpool flinch, because if they were looking at Ekitike, well, they've got to move now. But the problem with that is, if Isak's the number one target, buying Ekitike perhaps prevents them being able to get Isak, because that's the replacement. Of course, they could sign Ekitike, and then next summer there's a deal done that Isak and Ekitike switch clubs. And I appreciate a lot of this video is with the assumption Isak will leave eventually, but I do feel like he will. I just don't think it'll be this summer. And that gives Newcastle a season to say to Isak, don't go. We are the right club. Stay here. We're going to win more trophies. We're going to win more silverware. And that could be enough to persuade him. Anyway, Hugo Ekitike to Newcastle, 75 million euro, possibly. I rate this a lot. This would be one of my favourite signings of the summer. And I think if you're a Newcastle fan, you can be quite excited. Because even if you don't get Ekitike, even if you miss out on him, the ambition from the club is there. They've just shown they've got a lot of money to spend this summer. If they don't sign him, you can expect them to go try and get in another top striker. This is good. This is good for Newcastle. I think it's good for the Premier League as well, having Newcastle up there and competing with the regular Champions League candidates. I'm a fan. Anyway, fingers crossed this one happens. I'll be quite excited to see it. I like Ekitike. I like Newcastle. This should be a good transfer. Right, I'm off. Hopefully you've dropped a like on the video. If you haven't, please do. Catch up with you tomorrow.